5, 4, 3, 2.
When the tyrants taunt you and the sirens teach you, better stand up, stand up. Let the brave meet the challenge, let the meek weak flee. Boy, you better stand up, stand up. When you're tired of begging, saying pretty please, that's the time you gotta finally get up off of your knees. When you can't see the forest for the burning trees, you got to stand up. Hey, you've been sitting so long, you got the creaky knees, you gotta stand up, stand up. I think you're driving wheels with leaking grease. Boy, you better stand up, stand up. Well, there's a whole lot more of us who know what's right. They'll keep right on ignoring us if we keep sitting tight. You got to open up the window to let in some light. You gotta stand up, that's right. You got to rise up, you got to stand up, you got to stare the devil straight in the eye. We got to let him know it's his turn to go. See it clear when all you hear is a lie.
All right. Here we are with Bill Boyle. Bill B in D.C. Good evening, everybody. Thank you very much for joining me. Lots to talk about with Bill. Wanted to cover the latest developments. It's really hard to keep track of it, and folks love Bill's analysis. I certainly do. Always enjoy our conversations. Good to see you. Happy Monday night. I know tomorrow's a big day for you, Irish.
No, tomorrow is Amateur Drinkers Day.
Oh, what do you, does St. Patrick's Day mean anything to you, being Irish?
Growing up, it was a Saints Day we went to church on.
Oh.
So, it was considered to be like a matter of pride, right? But it was, and, when I was a teenager, of course, we all just got blotto, but it's not in Ireland. It's not outside of Dublin. It's not, and outside of Belfast, it's not really a thing. Although I did see the Irish Belfast ukulele band, like the ukulele club, play a bunch of Smith songs on their ukuleles for St. Patrick's Day, and that was kind of amazing in Belfast.
All right. Well, so some of them celebrate, and
Irish get creative with it.
To those who celebrate St. Patrick's Day on a Tuesday, have fun, be safe, and I think
fucking green beer.
No green beer. All right. Well, lots to discuss with you today, and it would seem that obviously more and more developments over the weekend, and there seems to be an escalation, not a de-escalation. The rhetoric doesn't match the action, and this is different than so many of the other horrible stunts that this regime, our regime, has pulled, in that they're really not in control of it. It's seemingly lost. They've lost control. They've lost the plot. They're even getting more MAGA critics, I think, than they thought they would have, like Tucker Carlson and Megyn Kelly and plenty of other influential people in that world. What are your thoughts here on day 18 or 19?
It's been 18 days. My God. So basically what this war comes down to right now is that the White House is belatedly figuring out something that the Iranians and every previous American administration knew already, which is that it doesn't take much for the Iranians to shut down the Strait of Hormuz. They don't need to put 5,000 mines in it. They just need some mines in it. They just need to shoot some missiles at it. It's big mountainous terrain on the Iranian side, and it's a narrow place. Shipping companies, given the amount of money that these tankers are worth, aren't going to insure them unless they are pretty sure it's going to be okay. So what the Iranians knew this, previous American administrations knew this. The trouble gained by trying to fight Iran this way, the benefits gained by trying to fight the Iranians this way versus the trouble it causes is totally out of whack. It makes no strategic sense. And it's why no one ever was dumb enough to do this before. What's happening right now on the ground, or in the water, I guess I should say, is that Iran is just doing just enough to make sure no one puts their tankers through, except the Iranian tankers themselves are being allowed through by the US as well. Okay. And this gets at the, I just described the geographic issue of there being a narrow strait Iran can always screw around with. The bigger strategic perspective on this is Iran can survive without doing very much. It doesn't need that much to stay in the fight. Whereas if you're the US, world oil prices are getting crushed. And if you're an American president and you did something to make oil prices go up from $3 to $3.80 a gallon, you're politically screwed and you're strategically screwed. So the geopolitical reality is Iran has less to lose, more punishment it can dish out. The U.S. has more to lose, and after a while, I mean, you're bouncing rocks, right? You're pounding things that don't really matter with your air power. So what's happening right now is literally the Iranians are sending tankers out full of oil to India and China and elsewhere, and the U.S. must let that happen because they're terrified of oil prices going up much higher. And when you're fighting someone, but you dare not touch their oil tankers, and you can't send any of yours through that crucial spot, that means they're winning. That means they have the strategic advantage over you. And I'll tell you, the U.S., Trump went, I shouldn't even say the U.S., this is all Trump. Trump told everybody to go fuck themselves, all of our allies.
Right.
Launched this war that none of them wanted. And now he's basically saying, sorry guys, but fuck you, you should come and fix this. That in and of itself is just an insane.
It's you don't
admission.
have to be a geopolitical analyst or a government expert to realize what is happening here. And that, I guess it's hard to believe sometimes, but given we've gotten to know this lunatic pretty well, there was no planning. There was no plan. The man, if we've said it once, we've said it 1,000 times. The man plans a script to control the day's news.
That's right.
And is doing a TV show every day. He doesn't care about tomorrow. And to highlight what you said, I saw this post on Blue Sky that guy said, I don't know who he is, but he said, why aren't other countries helping us with the Strait of Hormuz after we started an unjust war, cut off trade, and insulted them for a year?
Yeah, exactly. And, here's the thing. Italy and France are already negotiating with the Iranians. It would not be an unlikely outcome that the Iranians basically say to the French and the British and the Chinese and whoever, you guys are good to go. Keep bringing your oil in and out of Kharg Island. You're getting our oil and bringing it out in your tankers. But American tankers and UAE and Oman and Jordan and anyone else, fuck them, we'll sink them.
The reason why those other Arab states are getting punished or bombed by Iran is because they're hosting American forces mainly. Is that the main issue there?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of animosity going back for a very long time. These are Sunni dominated, for the most part, states with often large Shiite populations in them, or relatively large Shiite populations. And Iran has constantly screwed with them. They've screwed with Iran going back decades. So since the Shah fell, and even before the Shah fell, honestly, Iran was always putting pressure on these Emirates to try to get things out of them because Iran is big and they're small. Well, in this case, the U.S. went and started this war, and isn't even helping them. These are our supposed allies. We drag them into this war, and they're just, they're taking it on the chin economically. They're being hit by Shaheds, and the U.S., by the way, is refusing to give them any help with interdiction. It's Trump in a nutshell, where it's all you give to him, and fuck you if you want anything back. It's Trump. It's Trumpism as a world philosophy. And in the end, what it does is that anyone who looks at this says, no fucking way do I want to be the United States' ally as long as that guy is in charge.
Here are some of the responses rounded up by the folks at Midas Touch. World leaders Trump, after he begged them for help with the Strait of Hormuz. You started this mess, now deal with it. Japan's prime minister shut down the idea directly. Quote, we have not made any decisions whatsoever about dispatching escort ships. We are continuing to examine what Japan can do independently and what can be done within the legal framework. I don't know what that means. Australia also made it clear that they're staying out. We won't be sending a ship to the Strait of Hormuz. We know how incredibly important that is, but that's not something that we've been asked or that we're contributing to. It seems like they've been asked. South Korea signaled no commitment either, saying we will communicate closely with the U.S. regarding this matter and make a decision after careful review. Even Britain, one of America's closest allies, is distancing itself from Trump's war. Prime Minister Keir Starmer said he would, quote, not be drawn into a wider Iran war while discussing alternative approaches to shipping security. Finally, across Europe, the response has been even colder. Germany's defense minister, Boris Pistorius, delivered perhaps the most blunt response. What does Trump expect from a handful of European frigates that powerful U.S. Navy cannot do? This is not our war. We have not started it. And Italy finally says diplomacy is the answer. Greece says it won't participate in military operations, and the European Union is discussing its existing naval mission, but is not expected to expand it to the Strait. So who's helping?
Nobody's helping, and they shouldn't. They didn't create the situation. Trump did. Trump's going to have to get out of it. I mean, that's it. It's this weird idea, like Trump is saying, well, we were there for NATO for years and years and years, and now NATO isn't coming back and helping us. But he was literally like a week ago saying, we don't need those pussies. Screw that. Right. And, the U.S.
is generally like a defense organization defending against threats. They're not an offense.
Right. And this is not a NATO theater thing in the first place. Right. But I'll tell you something, 10 years ago, if this war had started in any way unlike the way Trump started it, they would have all been helping. They often did for decades help American administrations in the Persian Gulf. The only reason they're not is that Trump runs everything like a protection racket. And when he tries to squeeze you, if you don't punch him in the nose, he just comes back for more.
Isn't there in the history of wars and battles and armed conflict and even trade negotiations, aren't talks constantly occurring to create coalitions of countries so that that you're not going it alone? Because going it alone is a bad idea for all kinds of reasons. Like this seems very unilateral in a way that the U.S. even hasn't done on almost anything.
No, the U.S. has never behaved like this in your lifetime or mine. In fact, I don't think the U.S. has behaved like this ever. You have this weirdo creep as president who fundamentally cannot understand the idea of what an alliance is. It just doesn't sink in with him that there's give and take and that there's benefits that are not immediately financial or military from an alliance system. And by the way, NATO is the perfect example of that. Europe had two really incredibly terrible wars between 1914 and 1945. NATO stopped that. Trump doesn't see it that way. No, Trump doesn't even see like the benefit of putting money into something that basically keeps the most developed place in the world settled. It just doesn't occur to him. It's not tangible. Trump is a person without any imagination, right? I mean, that's a really, I think it's important for people to realize that about him. He doesn't have object permanence doesn't exist for him. If it's not right in front of him, if he's not getting something from it tangible, if he's not, able to, enforce his ego on somebody, then it doesn't really exist. And he can't believe, to him, it's shocking. After shitting on our allies for a year, it's shocking to him that they're saying no. And by the way, it's shocking to him at 4:00 in the afternoon. At 7, he probably doesn't even remember it. We're not dealing with a normal person who can who goes from, gather information, come to a conclusion, then have a policy. That's not him. And we have a government that does that extraordinarily well, but they have managed to destroy that process. With Hegseth in charge of the Defense Department and, Trump at the White House, there's no adults here. And people think someone's coming to save these guys. It's certainly not Dan Kane, who is a respectable figure at the head of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, but they're leaking to blame him now.
Really?
Yeah, they're leaking. They're saying, well, Trump, it's leaked today that Trump said to Kane, well, you didn't tell me this was going to happen. Alongside leaks that were Kane 100% told him what was going to happen, and Trump just blew it off. So there's the competing leaks going on right now. And I can tell you, I know people who know Dan Kane, 100% he said this will be bad news.
Of course he did. There was reporting that they got in a pretty heated argument, and that
CIA pushed back, Pentagon pushed back
against Trump's
against doing this
insane madman tendencies. I'm so tired of psychoanalyzing this man's madness every day as a way to try to figure out why he is doing such insane things. But that's continues to be where we're at.
There's a book out right now called The First Fascist about a guy named Marquis Morez. And he is a great example of like a late 19th century sort of the kind of people that were part of Vichy France or Nazi Germany or whatever. And just really interesting thing about it. Morez had not been killed by Bedouins in North Africa. Good for them. In the late 19th century, exactly that kind of guy, the fantasist who stumbles from one disaster to the next, and Hitler was a similar kind of guy. Mussolini was a similar kind of guy. Their absurdity is part of the actual political movement because their clownishness and their inability for anyone to take them very seriously is why they're able to slip from one thing to the next. Their lack of shame. If Trump was in any way a normal person, he'd be waking up every morning and saying to himself, Jesus, why the fuck did I do this? And he's not. He's just blaming you, me, the world, the French, China, everybody else.
You're closely watching oil. What's the latest?
So it eased a little today, but it's still bad. I mean, it's still in the 90s per barrel for Brent crude. I know that the Singapore jet fuel spot price the other day was 200. And that's the thing, by the way, that people don't just look or don't just believe that because the barrel of oil might ease a little bit into the 80s, back up to the 90s, back to the 80s, that's the whole story. Because where oil gets really expensive is in the refined products from it. So diesel, for instance, is much higher. It's $5 a gallon here versus $3.80. Jet fuel is extremely expensive. It's the refined products that come from it are not exponentially more expensive, but they are significantly more expensive than just what you're seeing in a barrel of Brent crude.
Main ingredient or primary ingredient in fertilizer. There's all these
Great example. Fertilizer is up 30 some odd % in the Midwest right now and going higher.
I'm surprised it's not higher, but I have no idea how this or any of these markets work. But anybody predicting, what are the best experts predicting about the next couple of weeks? I mean,
so each week that it goes on, the ripple effects get bigger. And if, it's now March, if this is still happening in June, gas prices are crazy for the rest of the summer into the fall. So because there's going to be some work to figure out ways around this problem. But I mean, we were in the 60s per barrel before this. And if we're in the 80s all the way through the summer, that's unbelievable amount of inflation, fully, obviously, clearly and directly inflation out of every American's pocketbook and globally too. I mean, it's inflation at the gas tank. It's inflation food because fertilizer is so much higher. It costs the country money because a lot more farmers are going to go bankrupt this year. And you're going to have all of those, the knock-on effects of that. The diesel being more expensive, obviously delivery of everything gets more expensive, right? We're a country that lives on trucking. So what he's done is he's in his inept genius. He has picked a fight that affects the one thing that will make his worst issue even worse. He has picked energy to fuck up. And again, if you're the Iranians, and the Iranians said today, like Trump said that they were talking to him, the Iranians were like, that's absolute bullshit. We're not talking. And the Iranians are openly saying, we've got no reason to stop now. So, and do you see Trump as someone who can go and make some sort of deal? We've already bombed and attacked the Iranians twice in the last 12 months while we were negotiating with them. So for the Iranians, why would you give up? Why would you give up? It's strategically moronic. And one thing about the Iranian government, they suck, but they're never irrational. They've never been irrational about their nuclear program, about their foreign policy or whatever. I hate their aims, and I think they malign aims, but they're not irrational. And they can look at what's happening right now just as easily as I can and say, you're winning, right? Or I shouldn't say winning, because this is really both losing. Iran is getting pounded, but the Iranian leadership knows that either they get some sort of final deal done by really sticking in and making the Strait of Hormuz very difficult for a long time, or this just happens to them next year.
Have you been paying attention to Israel's invasion of Lebanon? They're pounding Lebanon, 800,000 people displaced, like 1,000 people dead. Why? I mean, I guess the timing is one reason why, but they think we already thought
Bibi is aiming to consolidate Greater Israel while he has the chance. There's a couple things going on here. He always was somebody who advocated like clearing out the Arabs from Israel, from near Israel, from the West Bank, from Gaza, from southern Lebanon, and making Israel like its biblical size. And I think that that's purely what's happening here. It's that he sees the opportunity to do this with an American administration that isn't paying attention and can barely tie its own shoes. And remember, the war's end, Bibi's gone. Bibi loses that office, he goes to jail. So we're in this very bizarre setup where it's totally worth it for him personally. Yeah. And Bibi very famously never gives a shit about anything but Bibi. So
I saw one analysis that a lot of people think that he's continued these wars and even potentially fueled them in different ways so that he could stay in power and not be prosecuted, which is such a parallel to Trump, Jair Bolsonaro, or like there's authoritarians now and forever that conduct these kinds of horrible wars and actions to distract from or prevent themselves from ever facing any kind of accountability or justice.
Yeah, it's what I said to you last week or the week before, that Italy under Mussolini invaded Ethiopia for that exact same reason, right? If the French had stopped Hitler, from taking back the Rhineland, Hitler would have been done, and World War II never would have happened, right? This is a very classic thing, and people should really be aware. What Trump's doing with Iran is a classic expression of authoritarian consolidation. It's not helping him consolidate power because he screwed it up. The key to these folks is short, quick, and victorious. This is neither going to be short or quick or victorious. So
what do you make of all of the analysis of how many weapons that either side have, how many interceptors Israel have? There's reports they're almost out, or right. The US's Patriot missile or Tomahawk missile stock, or any of the other stock. Obviously Iran in terms of their drones. How do you analyze, how do you know that if there's any credibility to any analyst who's looking at the stockpiles that any Iran, Israel, or the US has and know that it's actually true?
Well, there's a saying, actually, I love this saying. It's that ammunition is expensive until it's virtually fucking priceless. And I think that some of the analysts I see, I don't necessarily, like CNN, who cares? Don't watch it for that. It's not what they're going to tell you. Or they'll have some guy who's been out of the military for 30 years telling you what's what. But certainly there's reports that the UAE, Oman, Bahrain, those countries are running lower. At the same time, there are fewer Iranian Shaheds and missiles coming over because Israel and the U.S. are trying to find every launch site possible to hit them. I don't think that's all that important in the big picture, because the important thing is that Iran can continue to interdict the Strait of Hormuz. Everything else, you hit an apartment building in Doha, that sucks, but that's not the war. The war is the Strait of Hormuz. The Iranians are clearly competent enough to understand that. So what they're doing is they're sending fewer shots at Israel, at the Gulf states, but they're making sure that it's really clear that they can drop more. Like Iran, by the way, has been fairly restrained, interestingly, about the mines they put into the Strait of Hormuz. I told you the other day, I thought it was like 1,000 mines. From what I'm understanding, that's actually wrong. They're putting just enough in to make sure that the insurance companies won't insure ships, but they're not trying to cut it off completely. And that is, that's really smart, because it lets other countries say, okay, well, if the Iranians will tell us, say, where we can get in and out, we'll make a deal with the Iranians. And that, I think that's what matters. I don't think the shortages are as important as people say they are. I also don't think that our posture vis-a-vis Taiwan and China is all that in danger. I don't think China's at all ready to go after Taiwan. And, something that no one ever talks about, something like 70% of the top positions in the People's Liberation Army, and China, by the way, confusingly has a thing called the People's Liberation Army Navy, which I think shows a lack of imagination, but they've purged like 70% of their leadership. The Chinese military is not in any shape to try to go 70 kilometers across an ocean and attack Taiwan.
There was reports from Politico and other outlets. Taiwan reports large-scale Chinese military aircraft presence near.
Yeah, that was kind of bullshit.
But that was kind of bullshit, that story.
What happened is that they stopped for a week or so, and then they started again. And that was taken as an escalation. China's been doing this for week after week.
Normal activity is what it's being called.
Yeah, I mean, it's slightly abnormal activity is what I would call it. I mean, the week they didn't do anything was really abnormal. So I'm sure there's some complicated signaling, or maybe it was just a training cycle, right? I mean, who knows? But I think that people overread that situation quite a bit.
I want to play something. There were some super strange things. I rarely play Trump on the show. I do watch him a lot of his speeches, a lot of his press conference, and a lot of it. But I want to try to play this for you and everybody, because today he was asked about Cuba, and he said that he's going to take Cuba.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is the clip. Tourism and everything else, it's a beautiful island. I think Cuba, in its own way, if tourism and everything else, it's a beautiful island. Great weather. They're not in a hurricane zone, which is nice for a change. They won't be asking us for money for hurricanes every week. But I think Cuba's the end. All my life I've been hearing about the United States and Cuba. When will the United States do it? I do believe I'll be having the honor of taking Cuba. That'd be good. That's a big honor.
Taking Cuba
in some form, yeah. Taking Cuba. I mean, whether I free it, take it, I think I could do anything I want with it. You want to know the truth? They're a very weakened nation right now. They were for a long time. Very violent leaders.
So the thing about that is everybody predicted that because Venezuela was its benefactor, Cuba would go bankrupt, and that's the cheapest way to say it. But they're a huge supporter, obviously, of Cuba. And then he obviously threw us a curve and started a war in Iran. Didn't want to wait for Cuba. But it's pretty clear that the conventional wisdom is that the Venezuela mission made him think, and the Iran bombing back in December, that he could do anything he wants. He's always thought that about himself.
He literally just said it right there.
He just said, I'm going to take it. You even heard Fox News' Peter Doocy, you're going to take it? No. Has anybody, when was the last time an authoritarian leader said he's going to take another sovereign country? He said it twice. Yeah. And I it's so nauseating to hear somebody, in this case me, say, you'd think that'd get more coverage. I think you hear more about that. But
I'll tell you, actually, I listened to Marjorie Taylor Greene excoriating that today. This is not Trump's approval for the war in Iran was 41% 2 weeks ago. I'd be curious where it is now. And Trump has turned into the ultimate neocon, which is wild because Trump's whole point, as far as Republicans were concerned, was to get away from the neocons. And yet Trump is worse than any other neocon that's ever been. And I think it's a fascinating thing that he just is so unmoored from reality that and by the way, he may do it. He may overthrow the Cuban government. And what's going to happen if we overthrow the Cuban government? Is there going to be a ton of American aid going to Cuba from the highly organized and well-planned Trump administration operation? Of course not. It'll be a fucking basket case that Trump will fuck up even more than it's fucked up. And, then he'll toddle off into the sunset saying, I won Cuba.
But
like
just,
in the best possible scenario for him, it'll be a disaster for everyone else.
can we just go back and unpack again? I'm going to take Cuba.
Yeah,
Putin,
because he sees this all as...
Putin did not say, I'm going to take Ukraine. No, no one does. No one says, I'm going to take another country. So overtly, they do it. They attempt it. But they don't overtly say, I'm going to take that country. And for an American president to say that, I just want to spend, I just want everybody to see that and draw their own conclusions. Yeah. I'm going to take that country? What?
I mean, I will tell you that guys like Ulysses S. Grant were incredibly formed by the fact that the U.S. war with Mexico, that Grant and Lee and a bunch of the other guys fought in the 1840s. Grant, for the rest of his life, said that was the most disgusting thing ever. This would be exactly that. This would be a defining experience for a generation of younger Americans who would just spend the rest of their lives going, fuck this, fuck these guys, fuck that party. That was awful. Because they are not going to they're not going to quote unquote liberate Cuba. They want Cuba to pillage Cuba. He wants beachfront property. He wants billions of dollars of assets from it. This is pillage. This is not. You notice the word he didn't use in that discussion. He never used the word democracy. He doesn't give a shit. We left the Chavistas in power in Venezuela. In Iran, Trump was literally saying, no, we want the Republican Guards to run things. They're smart, right? This is totally grotesque, transactional, oligarchic dictatorship behavior. And I mean, they're all going to burn in hell, but I got to say, even the fascists had something they believed in.
Right.
Was it racist, awful, gross? Of course. But at least they actually had something they believed in. The Soviets really did believe in the perfectibility of man. Right? Trump, what does Trump believe in? Trump. That's what he believes in. Aggrandizing his own 10-year-old fucking boy ego. And that's it. And, he is, I don't get too bent out of shape talking about his psychology because I don't really talk about it anymore. I'm a lot more interested in the kind of people who still support him. Because if you're still, the mask is fully off. He obviously doesn't give a shit about regular people. He obviously is totally about hooking up his family. The things that people said about Hunter Biden and corruption related to him, Donald Trump Jr. does that every morning before he gets out of bed.
Yes.
I mean, the scale of the corruption and bullshit with these people is unbelievable. And if you're still voting for him, if you still think that this is okay, you're a sad and pathetic person. And I wish you would move to Russia or somewhere else because you don't fucking deserve a democracy. That's just true. I mean, you're so benighted and stupid that you think that the Republicans and Donald Trump are doing anything for you. They hated Biden for inflation. They made it worse. They hated Biden for fighting foreign wars. They're fighting way more foreign wars and dumber. They hated Biden for supposedly Hunter's corruption. They are so beyond orders of magnitude more corrupt than Hunter Biden ever was. If they hated the government for telling them what to do, we literally have a Republican Party right now and a White House that wants to say women can't vote unless they have their they can't vote under their married name unless they
say fact
all kinds of hoops to prove it.
We disenfranchise a lot of Republicans too if they were past that.
These are disgusting people, obviously so. And if you still vote for them, I'm sorry, you are a fucking idiot.
This war has taken over the headlines for the entire almost 3 weeks since it was stupidly started. It does seem to be dividing MAGA world, at least if you think that, like I do, that the most influential commentators carry a lot of weight, and I do. And Tucker Carlson and Megyn Kelly and others Joe Rogan are very much against this war in Iran, and a lot of them positioning it as being Israel's war. It's their interest, and they dragged us in, and we're fighting their war for them. And I wonder if what you think, if that splits the Republican Party, the MAGA movement more, and if that's a question. We've been asking this question a lot, but I mean, I think it's a fair and important question, that they're either split or they're apathetic or they're no longer on the train. They don't vote at all. They vote for Democrats. I don't know. What are your thoughts about how this war is splitting the MAGA movement and Trump's following?
So I think that a lot of these people are looking at 2029 and saying, what's the world going to be like? What's American politics going to be like when this crazy old man has shuffled off his mortal coil and is gone from the scene? And I think that for someone like Marjorie Taylor Greene, I think she is smarter than I thought she was a couple of years ago.
Yeah, well,
because she's coming out to oppose this stuff. She is not doing, like, Tucker Carlson very much edges into anti-Semitism. She's not doing that. She's going around going like, this isn't what MAGA was supposed to be about. Like, she's reminding people of what they were claiming they were for 5 years ago. Fascist movements, proto, semi, demi, whatever version of fascist movements you want to call this, they always have really intense factional fights below the surface. And I think that's exactly what's happening here, where, it's the SA versus the SS, right? Where it's the different tendencies they're okay when the leader is strong enough and he can bind them together and keep them from going off in disparate directions. Once he starts to lose touch, once he starts to kind of get too old, maybe to like get on the phone at 4 a.m. with everybody, they start to shoot off in their own directions. And I think that's just a fairly simple version of what's happening here. I think there was always going to be somebody at this stage in Trump's political trajectory. There was always going to be a faction that started to break off. And I don't think it's that surprising it's happening here. And by the way, it'll get worse as time goes on.
On Monday, our dear leader claimed that he spoke to a former U.S. president about the U.S. military strikes in Iran.
Yeah, he lied.
Shortly thereafter, representatives for every single living president denied such a conversation had taken place.
I mean, all of them didn't do it when they all could have. So what the fuck does he think? Like, that's just but again, Trump he has no shame and he has no sense of reality other than reality that helps him or fits what he wants to believe. So that shouldn't surprise anybody that he's just lying through his teeth about every conversation about this.
What else? What's next? What are you looking for? What are you watching? Who are you reading? What are you thinking about the region, the partners, the Gulf states? I mean, what did I just see it at Drudge clickbait, like Dubai is over or some shit. I mean,
yeah, well, Dubai was always where British expats went not to pay any taxes. So there's a lot of schadenfreude from British people about that. But I think what's next is the slow realization in the White House that they caught the bumper of the bus and they need to figure out how to let go of it. And I'm not sure they're going to have an easy time doing that.
I think that's a pretty fair and accurate prediction. Yeah. Well, it seems to be coming apart in a lot of different ways. Oh, look, Greg Bovino is retiring, the little Keebler elf Nazi.
Oh, yeah. Well, since he won an Academy Award last night, his third, from what I understand.
Oh, so great.
Right.
Sean Penn, you're referring to Sean Penn's portrayal.
Yeah, indeed, yeah.
Basically. Sean Penn skipped the Oscars to hang out with Volodymyr Zelensky.
You've won 2 Oscars already. What's a third?
The pretty fucking badass move, though.
That's true. Oh, hey, you know what? Sean Penn irritates me in many ways, but his support for Ukraine, 100% legit. Good stuff.
Susie Wiles has breast cancer, but she's going to keep working. Trump's chief of staff.
I mean, how could you not get cancer if you were stuck with Trump every day?
Everybody that has ever worked.
The man is just a tumor in the middle of our republic.
Did you see he gave a bunch of people shoes and
Florsheim shoes, and they're too freaked out? Like, think about how fucking crazy this is. This reminds me, there's a story, by the way, about Stalin. where Stalin would go and give these party Congress meetings, pep talks, and there'd always be KGB or GRU or whatever guys sitting around watching the audience to protect the leader. And Stalin, before he left, he generally I am Comrade Stalin, mustache, the whole deal, and I'm telling everybody this is what the next 5-year plan is going to be and everything else, and everybody would applaud uproariously, right? Because if you didn't, right? Well, Stalin though used to, before he walked out of the room, he'd go, okay, that's enough, thank you, and he would leave, and that was a signal for everybody to stop clapping. Well, the one time Stalin forgot to say, everybody relax, don't worry, goodbye. He walks out, everyone's clapping, and there's no one to tell him to stop. And there's security goons leaning against the wall staring at everybody. And so they kept clapping and clapping and clapping for minutes on end because no one knew how to stop without being told they could, until one guy finally stopped. And then everyone else did. And there's people claiming the story is apocryphal. I don't think it's apocryphal. That guy ended up going to the gulag because the guards said, hey, Yuri Popov over there, he stopped first. Get him out of here. So Trump has been buying Florsheim shoes, which are shit shoes, by the way. I'm sorry, Florsheim. I don't know if they're a sponsor, Pete, but if they are, I apologize. But he's buying them these black Florsheim dress shoes, but he's guessing their shoe size. And so Marco, who probably wears like a 4.5, is in 6s. And these guys are too afraid to just go and get a fucking black Florsheim that fits you. Instead, they're all walking around in the president's shoes that don't fit.
Is that real? Is that real? There's pictures
that
of
is real. Oh, there's pictures of people's feet where they're swimming in the shoes.
Their shoes are baggy on
and
them.
Trump said it's such a classic dictator thing to do because dictators love the petty shit. Stalin used to make guys sit up at night and drink endlessly with him and watch American cowboy movies. Hitler used to do the same thing, make his whole staff stay up all night watching movies with him. It's by making people do these really sort of intimate personal things, it's a way to really enforce your control over them. Well, in Trump's cabinet, Trump said this was to foster unity. Hey, Pete, I got you some Florsheim. Here you go. Ugh. And then, they're too small for you, but you crash your feet in them because you don't want the boss to see that you're wearing brown Cole Haans.
Such cuck.
But it's it's such a classic dictator thing to do. And you can go look online, guys. It's all over Blue Sky and Twitter. Marco, like this much room behind the back of his heel and the end of the shoe.
Someone should ask him about it.
No, I'm sure. Yeah. Sure. Marco will say, he'll click his heels and say, mein Führer bought me Florsheim. So
the least important question is a political analysis of the heir apparent and whether it's Marco Rubio or JD Vance, which a lot of people have their money on one of the two of them. They're both going to be connected to this wasteful, awful, terrible war that they signed on to. And that can't be helping them in the future, I'm guessing, if we're all still here.
I think that it would be difficult to find another pair of less appealing sycophants.
Yeah.
And maybe Lindsey Graham. Lindsey Graham's up there for sure. But I just think it'll end up, I don't think it matters which one it is. I think they get absolutely blown out in the next presidential election. Maybe if you put Rubio on Vance's shoulders and they can put a big trench coat on and try to be one candidate. But, they're just going to get absolutely fucking slaughtered and go down into ignominy and bad odor for the rest of history.
All right. Thank you very much, as always. Really fascinating and interesting analysis. Always love talking to you here on a Monday night. Thanks to the over 130 people watching live right now. Thank you guys for watching. Patreon.com.
Do you have anything to do on a Monday night? Jesus Christ.
I appreciate it. And those more listening on the podcast, go subscribe. Go follow Bill on Blue Sky right now at Bill B in DC. And I will talk to you all tomorrow. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.